Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans, the best damn movie-related show on the internet. This is, of course, our daily show, bringing you all the latest movie news with insight into what it all means and a little bit of context to give you as well. My name's John Campea. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News. And you might have noticed, for those of you who are regulars of the show, I'm not in the AMC Movie News studios. I'm not in anything that looks like a studio. I am actually at Comic-Con in San Diego. I am in my hotel room. It is Wednesday morning. The festivities of Comic-Con have not really started yet, but me and the whole AMC Movie News crew came down here last night. Me, Dennis Zen, Amy Rose Eisenbach, Clark Wolf, Chris Lee Kennedy, John Schnepp's already down here somewhere, a bunch of other, Jimmy O, Gray Drake, a bunch of people already down here. And so, but we thought, we don't want to leave everybody in the lurch with movie news, so I'm going to do this show myself. Sorry, it's just me. I know it's a little bit boring, but hopefully we can keep you informed anyway. So let's get started with some Christopher Nolan news, all right? First story is this. Christopher Nolan, the director of such films as Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Inception, The Prestige, and others, is set to release his new film, Interstellar, in AMC theaters everywhere on November 7th, 2014. Now, not much is known about the new sci-fi film other than the fact that it's described like this: a heroic interstellar voyage to the furthest reaches of our scientific understanding. The film already has an incredible cast, with Matthew McConaughey, who will probably end up getting an Oscar nomination this year for his performance in Mud, Anne Hathaway, who just worked with Christopher Nolan in The Dark Knight Rises, Jessica Chastain, who's in Zero Dark 30, Michael Caine, who's in everything Christopher Nolan does, and Casey Affleck, yes, Ben's brother. Now, we can add another incredible name to that list: John Lithgow. Lithgow has 2 Oscar nominations to his name, with Best Supporting Actor nominations for 1983's The World According to Garp and 1984's Terms of Endearment. I love John Lithgow. Now, whether we're talking about Harry and the Hendersons or the original Footloose, he was amazing as the villain in that Sylvester Stallone film Cliffhanger. Remember that one? I love that movie. I thought Lithgow was great in it. Christopher Nolan has a way of really attracting the top talent. And, we've talked before about how I think Matthew McConaughey is very underrated, and now he's probably going to get an Oscar nomination. We already mentioned that. He looks great in this new Martin Scorsese film, Wolf of Wall Street. And now Christopher Nolan recognizes how good he is too. So this is great. But adding John Lithgow to anything, to me, is a big step up. So good job, Nolan. Next story. The Dan Brown novels turned to movies, The Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, is about to have a third film join its ranks. It's being reported that Sony Pictures will bring Brown's novel Inferno to AMC theaters on December 8th, 2015. Actor Tom Hanks is set to reprise his role as Professor Robert Langdon, and Ron Howard will also return to direct the film. Published earlier this year, Inferno is officially described as follows. In the heart of Italy, Harvard professor of symbology Robert Langdon is drawn into a harrowing world centered on one of history's most enduring and mysterious literary masterpieces, Dante's Inferno. Against this backdrop, Langdon battles a chilling adversary and grapples with an ingenious riddle that pulls him into a landscape of classic art, secret passageways, and futuristic science. Drawing from Dante's dark epic poem, Langdon races to find answers and decide whom to trust before the world is forever altered. I got to admit right off the bat that I have not read Brown's previous books. I have not read The Da Vinci Code. I have not read Angels and Demons, but I watched the films. And from what a lot of people tell me, the films were pretty faithful to the books. But to me, that's always kind of been an example of sometimes you shouldn't be really faithful to the books because sometimes it doesn't translate really well on screen. I didn't think The Da Vinci Code worked all that well as a film. It felt to me like a novel being brought to the movies without much adaptation going on to make it work for the new medium. So to me, that was always a bit of a problem. And Angels and Demons, I think, had other problems as well. But just because I think those films had problems doesn't mean that I'm not very curious to see Tom Hanks, who, you can make, I'm not going to say he is, you can make an argument Hanks is in the discussion for greatest actors of all time. And Ron Howard, who I love Ron Howard as a filmmaker. So whenever they do something, even if it's in a series I haven't liked so far, that doesn't mean I don't think there's not potential to do something really good. I really like the description of this novel. Like I said, it's the third in the series. Now there's a fourth book that I think is supposed to actually come before Inferno, but they're looking at maybe producing that at a later date. So this will be the third film in the series, and I'm curious to check it out. All right, third story of the day. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World star Mary Elizabeth Winstead has joined the cast of the upcoming film Kill the Messenger. Winstead will join Jeremy Renner and Rosemary DeWitt in the true story of journalist Gary Webb, a San Jose Mercury news reporter who allegedly committed suicide after being the target of a smear campaign when he linked the CIA to a scheme to arm Contra rebels in Nicaragua and import cocaine into California. Now, whenever you're talking about political intrigue movies, especially ones that are based on real stories, and I say based on real stories, I'm not necessarily saying that they're all absolutely accurate, but these political intrigue stories based on real stories are ones that always intrigue me. Now, Jeremy Renner is an actor where, while lately he's really been manifesting himself as an action star, where they're talking about the Mission Impossible film, the Bourne film, obviously in Avengers, we tend to forget that he's actually just a really damn good actor. He was so good in The Town with Ben Affleck. He's been so good in so many different things that he's just really solid. Now, adding Winstead to this, Winstead's an interesting dilemma. She was pretty good. No, she wasn't pretty good in Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. That one wasn't very good at all, and her performance wasn't all that great in it. And obviously she was in that Thing kind of remake / prequel, and that wasn't her best work either. She was so good in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So I'm very intrigued to see her pop up in a film like this. I want to see what she really has, and I think this type of a film will give us a really good idea as to what she's going to be bringing. The next topic. Actress Felicity Jones has been dropping hints recently about who her character in the upcoming The Amazing Spider-Man 2 will be. All signs point to her playing Black Cat, although that's never been confirmed. However, she may have just made a very big public spoiler. In a recent interview, she said the following: "It's all quite shrouded in secrecy, but I'm the Goblin's girlfriend. I'm in a relationship with him and his accomplice. I'm on the dark side." Now, this is potentially a really huge spoiler that she's just given out, because Dane DeHaan, we know, is playing Harry Osborn. But just because he's Harry Osborn doesn't necessarily mean he was going to become the Goblin. It doesn't mean it was going to happen. Remember in Spider-Man 2, the old one-armed professor who eventually we know from the comics becomes the Lizard? Just because he was in Spider-Man 2 doesn't mean he was turning into the Lizard yet. That could have been 5 films down the road. We don't know. But now we see Felicity actually saying, "I'm the Goblin's girlfriend," and kind of confirming that she's going to be a Black Cat at the same time. So we'll have to wait and see. There was none of us, I was certainly not anticipating DeHaan becoming Goblin so soon, unless she's talking about future plans. We all knew that getting an actor like Dane DeHaan, who was so ridiculously good in Chronicle. I know I talk about Chronicle all the time, but seriously, folks, if you haven't seen it, you want to see a stellar performance, Dane DeHaan in Chronicle is awesome. He was also really good as a very different kind of character in Lawless last year. Such a great film. I know it's one of Dennis's favorite films of 2012. So Dane DeHaan is killer. I was so happy when he was cast in this role. We knew eventually he'd become Goblin. We just didn't know when. Did she just let it slip? Well, time will tell. All right, folks, we're going to get to a couple of mailbag questions here before I run off and start my excursion over to the Comic-Con Convention Center. And let's start with the first mailbag question. The first mailbag question is from Ben Brufflet, who writes, "Hey all, big fan. I appreciate how you take time to answer questions and discuss them, so I have one for you. My favorite superhero is Nightwing. Big minority, I know. To me, Dick Grayson has the most interesting story. What with the becoming Batman's first sidekick, growing up and wanting to be his own hero, and becoming Nightwing. With all the success of superhero movies since they did Iron Man, what do you think I'll ever get my dream of a movie series revolving around Dick Grayson / Nightwing?" Well, Ben, you're not really in that big of a minority. Nightwing is an incredible character. I've always said, one of my favorite single issues of any comic book was when it was shortly after the whole Nightfall series, when Bane breaks Batman's back, Bruce Wayne, and he goes off to heal, and Jean-Paul comes in, Azrael, and takes over the mantle of the Bat. He goes crazy, and eventually Bruce has to come back and defeat him to take back the mantle of the Bat. Now, what happens after that whole storyline, though, is that Bruce is still not healed. He still needs time. And he approaches, him and Dick Grayson have this kind of falling out. Now, Dick Grayson, the original Robin, has grown up. Him and Bruce have had their differences, but Dick Grayson goes on to become the character Nightwing and helps out Batman whenever he can. But there's also, like, they butt heads quite a bit. But I remember in this one comic book issue, one of my favorites of all time, it's after Jean Paul's gone, Bruce has beaten him, and they have this conversation. And I think, like, the whole issue is basically this conversation between Bruce and Dick in the Batcave. And basically what it is Dick wants to know, why the hell did you not come to me? When you were gone and you needed somebody to take up the mantle of the Bat while you healed, why did you turn to this psychopath? Why did you go to this other guy? Why did you not keep it in the family? Why did you not come to me? And this sense of pain and rejection that Dick has. And I'll never forget, Bruce is struggling with it as well. And I think it was right near the end. I haven't read the issue in a number of years, so I might be getting the small details here wrong. But basically near the end, Bruce puts his hand on Dick's shoulder and says, I guess there were always these types of issues between fathers and sons. And, really emphasizing that relationship they had. And it was very I'm getting emotional just thinking about this stupid issue. Nightwing to me is an incredible story. The story of Dick Grayson, I think, is one of the most interesting in all of comic books. But Nightwing presents a bit of a dilemma. Because in a recent episode of AMC Mailbag, I just talked about how you can't do a good Robin in a movie. You can't. Robin is a fantastic character. Remember, Robin is a character that was created in 1940. He was a product of the 40s, made specifically, you can read about his creation. The creators made him specifically to appeal to children, to get children to read the comic. And he was kind of also a response to Bucky. Captain America had Bucky, so they kind of wanted to have their own response to Bucky as well. And Robin obviously has evolved a lot over the years, from the incredible storyline about the death of Jason Todd at the hands of the Joker, to, Red Hood and all that kind of stuff. And then, you had Tim Drake take it up. Then you had Damian Wayne become Robin. There's certainly some interesting mythology behind the character of Robin as you go through all the different people who've played Robin and who have taken up the mantle of Robin. But the problem is, and I get in this discussion all the time with people, a lot of people who are fans of either books or cartoons or comic books, when they love something, they refuse to kind of step back from their love of that thing and say, now let's look at the big picture. Just because something works in a cartoon, just because something works in a comic book, just because something works in a novel, doesn't mean it'll work in a movie. Because it's a completely different medium that has a different tone and a different feel altogether. And I said in AMC Mailbag that you can't do a cool Robin in the big screen. You can't have what we expect from our modern incarnations of Batman, the Dark Knight. We can't expect in that movie universe, on a big screen in this medium, for him to tag along a 13-year-old child with him, or a 14-year-old, or a 15-year-old, or a 16-year-old to be shot at and to, engage murderous criminals. That would make Batman a child abuser and a jackass. And you can make very cool things with that scenario in a comic book and make it feel really good. You can do those sorts of things in a cartoon and kind of make them feel good, but that type of thing wouldn't translate to the big screen. And I had a lot of people who disagree with me, and that's the most fun thing about being a film fan, is having disagreements and engaging and debating. I love this sort of thing. And so I expect people to disagree with my opinion on this. I encourage it, as a matter of fact. That's how we enjoy fandom. But yeah, I just don't think it's possible to be true to the Robin character and have that character come across as either believable or good in any way on the big screen. You'd either have to change Robin altogether to make him fit the big screen altogether, or you have to just keep him in the comic book and cartoon world. I think the answer is to keep him in the comic book and the cartoon world because that's where he works. That's where he works great. And so, how do you do, getting back to Dick Grayson, how do you do a Nightwing? Because part of his richness is his history as Robin. That is a part. Now, it's not the only thing that makes him so great, but it is a part of the overall story of Dick Grayson, Nightwing, Batman in many instances. So how do you do that without mentioning that he's Robin, or there's been Robin, or referring to the fact that he's been Robin? You could do a couple of things. I mean, you could pick up a story where he's a troubled 22-year-old who kind of partners up with Batman at some point. But then again, you're going to really tick off the Robin purists. It's like, no, that's not where Robin comes from. So it's difficult. I would love to see a Nightwing, but I acknowledge that it's a really difficult thing to pull off. Comic book fans and cartoon fans are like, no, that's easy. You can do Nightwing so easy. You could just, you're not acknowledging reality. The realities would be very, very difficult. I hope some really great writer can come up with a great way to make that work. I just know it would be beyond my capability and beyond a lot of people's capabilities. I hope they can do it because I love Nightwing. And I would love to see a really good version of him without having to compromise him by going into silly Robin stuff. So that's just my opinion. I know many of you will have a different opinion, and that's awesome. Share your opinion in the comment section below. Got to move on to the next question here. Kevin Shaw Jr. writes, "Hey guys, love the shows. Been backtracking and watching older episodes and saw one a while back where you offhandedly mentioned that Paul Giamatti is playing Rhino in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Does this concern anyone? I absolutely love Paul Giamatti and think he's a phenomenal actor, but a giant muscular man in a Rhino suit is not one I can see him pulling off. What are your thoughts?" Well, Kevin, it's a great question. It's a question I kind of had at first too. But as many people, many AMC Movie Talk viewers reminded me of, in newer incarnations in the comic book, Rhino is actually in a big, almost android-like robotic battle armor, like an exoskeleton suit. And when you look at these images from Paul Giamatti on set, you see he is going to be wearing some kind of huge robotic battle armor that they're obviously going to CG in. But you can see from the contraption that he's in here that obviously that's the way they're going. So it's a bit of a departure from our classic understanding of who Rhino is. But once again, you got to adapt to make it work on the big screen. And this is probably a much more believable... Like, I was crying foul when I saw that they were going to be doing a CG, techno battle armor Rhino. I cried foul, but the readers in the comment section convinced me otherwise, that this is probably the best way for them to go. And look, I loved the first Amazing Spider-Man. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think the new Amazing Spider-Man was in every way superior to the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Not as good as Spider-Man 2, but better than the first Spider-Man. So I trust Mark Webb. I believe in Andrew Garfield as a great modern Peter Parker, and I can't wait to see what they do with this. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on Rhino and see how that turns out. All right, our final question of the day comes to us from Brian Sutton, and Brian Sutton writes, "Hey guys, love the show, huge fan. I recently saw Pacific Rim, and my goodness, that was a beautiful movie. After I saw it, I went home and watched your review that you made, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was just wondering if you planned on doing more reviews like that in the future. Personally, I think it would be a great addition to what you are already doing. Thanks." For those of you who don't know what Brian's talking about, we've done 2 movie reviews at AMC Movie Talk. We did a special hour-long review of Man of Steel, and we did a 30-minute review of Pacific Rim. So, many people have been asking me, well, why don't you do more? Because they're fun. And I got to tell you, I have a lot of fun doing these reviews. A lot of fun. They've always been with me, John Schnepp, and Clark Wolf so far. But, I mean, we can change up the lineup for different movies. But that's what we've done so far. And they've always been a lot of fun to do. Here's the problem, though. I will never say something that I don't believe. I will never say something is good about a movie if I don't like the movie. I mean, even if I don't like a movie, if there are good things in it, I'll say certain things are good, but I won't sit there and say I like a movie if I don't like it. As a movie theater chain, AMC Theaters is in a bit of a weird spot because we are partners with the studios, and we want films to do well. Even the bad ones. We want the bad films to do well, obviously because we have benefit to gain from that, so we're biased. But I will not say things I do not believe. So we did Pacific Rim, and I'll tell you right now, if we all came out of Pacific, we planned to do the review, but if we all hated Pacific Rim, I wouldn't get on camera and say I liked it. But I just wouldn't have done the review because it's a conflict of interest for us to go on camera and talk crap about a movie that is just opening up that weekend in our own theaters. There's a conflict of interest. Now, AMC is an amazing company because they have never once, ever asked me to say something I don't believe. They have never once. I think there are other companies. If I worked for some other companies, they might have come to me and say, look, just do a review and say you like Grown Ups 2. Just do a review and say you liked Battlefield Earth. There are other companies who do that. AMC has never done that. I think they know I would quit if they did. But that is, they have such great integrity, this company, which is one of the reasons why I like to work for them and work with them. So we have this bit of a problem. We can plan on reviewing movies. And like we did our Superman Returns. We did our Man of Steel review. And if you saw that review, you know I loved it. Schnepp was meh on it. He thought, okay, and Clark didn't like it. And I was comfortable still doing that review because there's nothing wrong with having different points of view, as long as at least one of us really liked the film and could stand up for the film. But if all three of us didn't like Man of Steel, I just wouldn't have done the review. We just wouldn't have made one. If none of us liked Pacific Rim, we just wouldn't have done the review. So now, I'll tell you right now, we're planning on doing a review for Wolverine. I'm a little nervous about us not liking it because, you know, the last Wolverine was so bad. So I'm a little bit nervous. I'm hoping that I'm going to like it. But if we don't like it, I will not get on camera with three of us not liking it and trash a film that is just opening up in our theaters. So instead of lying, I just won't do the review. We just won't do it. But if we do the review, it'll be because at least one of us really likes it and we can stand up for the film and show different points of view. So that's the conundrum we face in considering doing reviews. Now, don't think that if we don't do a review for a movie, that means we didn't like it. We've only done 2 reviews so far. I'm not sure how many reviews we're going to do or if we're going to continue doing reviews after we do a review for Wolverine. But we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining me. That'll run it for me. Listen, I'm in San Diego right now. Tonight, we have a special screening. The Masters of the Web, which is the panel that I run at Comic-Con every year. The Masters of the Web is presenting a special free screening tonight at the Gaslamp Reading, or I don't know if you pronounce it Reading or Reading, but at the Gaslamp Reading Theater of You're Next, the new Lionsgate film. The cast and the crew are going to be there. I'm going to run a Q&A with them after the screening is done. It's free. It's at 9 p.m., but you got to be there and in line in time to get yourself a seat. So I would suggest coming down early and getting in line to make sure you can get a seat for that. Tomorrow, hey, if you're in San Diego or in Comic-Con, tomorrow is, of course, my annual Masters of the Web panel. It's going to be at 11:30 in the morning at the Convention Center in room 24A, B, and C. Me, a bunch of the best online film pundits in the world of horror, and, of course, the writer and the director from Your Next will be there as well. And then tomorrow night is our AMC Movie Talk meet and greet. Come on down and meet us on the first floor bar at the Omni Hotel, which is right across from the Convention Center, and you can meet me as well as all the crew of AMC Movie Talk, including, you know, Amy Rose, Clark, Chris Lee, John Schnepp, Dennis Zen. A lot of us are going to be there. Come on down, say hi. We'll be there from 7 till 8:30 in the evening. So thank you so much for joining me today. We will continue bringing you AMC Movie Talk while we're here at San Diego Comic-Con to keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news. So until next time, my name's John Campea, and until then, bye-bye.